folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So how often do you actually practice or train for Shtf? And in this video, I'm not talking about tactical training. I'm not talking about military style training, self-defense, perimeter defense, combat militia, any of that kind of training. I'm talking about getting yourselves mentally and physically ready for going through a really bad time. Possibly epically big bad times. And this is something that we need to practice on and train and get ourselves ready, hone our skills, make sure our stuff works, our plan works, and really, probably most importantly, that ourselves and our families are mentally ready for that kind of stuff. And so that's why we should train. Before I get started on this, I just want to mention that, you can go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. It's not going to hurt you. It's not gonna bite you, and it's free to do. It doesn't cost you anything to click on that like and subscribe button below. Also, if you want to see more exclusive and content that's more personal, face-to-face kind of stuff, and I also talk about things not specifically prepping and homesteading. I have a Patreon channel, and for only $1 a month, you can get in there, and I post stuff throughout the week on that channel. All right. So we all know things are bad, like that old 70s movie. Of course it's bad. Things are bad. The stock market's down. Well, the stock market isn't down, but you know what is down? Home buyer confidence. Home buyer confidence is extremely down, low, low, low. In fact, the last time we saw numbers this low in the home buyer confidence, meaning people are, they're confident that they can go buy a home. They think that it's a good time for them to buy a home. The last time we saw numbers this low was in, the 1930s, during the Depression, the Great Depression. So it's not looking so good in that area. It's also down way low in things like appliance buying, car buying, and it's interesting when you start looking at a lot of these numbers, inflation and the economic numbers, they're not looking all that great. But if you read the articles or you watch the news clips from, mainstream news, we believe it's going to all come back. We believe it's going to bounce back. We believe it's going to do better. It's going to be the best ever, best yet. But honestly, there's not really a lot of real evidence to show that. In fact, I was reading an article talking about Deutsche Bank was saying that they believe that the American inflation is much, much higher than the Fed is saying that it is. In fact, they say that it's showing on their charts that it's nearly off the chart. Was the words I believe I remembered reading that they said. And that they're not the only ones. There's a lot of other people, other economists that are saying that the inflation rate is much higher than what the government and the Fed is letting on. And so because of this kind of stuff, I'm watching chickens just peck at the garden that I just planted. I'm making sure that they're not tearing it up, but I'm afraid they're going to. So if there's a pause, it's because I'm chasing them off. Anyways, so that's why we prepare, right? That's why we do the things that we do, so that we can prepare. But do you ever practice? Do you ever train? Do you ever go out and do things on your homestead, in your home, to get ready for that? And while, doing the tactical training, sharpening your firearm skills and your hand-to-hand combat skills and, your sneaking around in the dark skills, those are fun. But there's other skills that you need to work on. Like, when's the last time you practiced cooking a meal without all your utilities? Some of you do this all the time, but I guarantee you there's probably a lot of you that haven't in a while. So, how well can you cook a meal by turning all the power off? If you use electricity, maybe you use natural gas that's piped in. Go in and turn that off, or just don't use the stove. And how well are you cooking with that? What about bathing, cleaning, the different things that need to be done? Going to the bathroom. Maybe you have a plan, an alternative plan, that if the duty hits the fan, us going to the bathroom, we're going to do it this way. Well, have you ever actually done it? Have you ever practiced it? What about as a family, and especially for those of you that might have children, smaller children especially, how are they going to handle the boredom, the drastic change when there's no power, when they can't go out, when they can't do the things that they're normally used to doing, whether it's playing video games or watching TV or anything like that? Do you have things for them to do, and are they going to be okay with that? You could go on and on with stuff like this. Have you ever, heated your home without, utilities coming in? A lot of you probably heat your home through electric or gas. And if you went in and flipped the breakers off to the house during the middle of the winter time, are you able to handle that? What about in the middle of the summertime when it's super hot and you just can't wait to get from outside into that cool air conditioning, and there's no air conditioning? When's the last time you've experienced that? Again, I know that some of you probably do often, all the time, but I suspect there's a lot that don't. And so part of your training, part of developing the skills and the mindset and getting prepared mentally, physically, and spiritually, part of that is practicing to do just that. So some of the things that we do around here is we have like a non-electric day, and we shut everything off and we cook without it. We cook over the fire. We may cook, like an outside fire. We may cook over a little propane type of small burner or something like that. Other things that we do, we occasionally cook with the stuff that we prep. Now, most of our prep food, we try to make it things that we eat on a regular basis. But if you're like us, and I suspect that you are, you probably have buckets of rice and beans and whole wheat and things like that because it's really cheap. And you can acquire several 100 pounds of it for a little bit of nothing. Well, what are you going to do when that's all you have to eat? Do you know how to prepare a decent meal? Because I'm telling you, if all you're going to do is eat plain beans and rice for the next 2 years, if the bubble goes up and blows, you're going to get real tired of it really quickly. So get that food out and cook it, and try to figure out ways to make it taste okay. Try to figure out a gourmet meal out of it without tapping into your normal stuff. Maybe you go outside, which is something we do, and we forage for things at times, and we'll add different greens and different edible plants into our meal, or we'll flavor it with plants that we get out in the wild that we know add good flavoring to food. There's other things that you can be doing along the way. And like I said earlier, one of the biggest things that I think it's going to be something that most people, even preppers, get caught off guard with, and that is just the boredom, just the nothing to do, nothing that is normal to you anymore. The psychological burden and wearing on a person, even a trained mind, that can get to you pretty quickly. So doing things with your children, if your habits, and especially your children's habits, are to sit in front of a TV or sit in front of a computer screen or sit in front of their phone screens, and that's just what they do, and that's how they spend their time, they're not going to like you. They may even hate you for a moment. But I encourage you to turn it all off. I really think it'd be good to turn it all off forever, but turn it all off for a day and do things as a family and play certain games or do some kind of art project. Do something. This is good for many things, and there's many good reasons to do this, but from a preparedness standpoint strictly, it's a good way to train your body, to train your mind, to do things that you normally may not do in times of trouble. I mentioned the going to the bathroom. Hygiene is something that a lot of people don't really think a whole lot about. They're like, well, I'll figure that one out, right? I'll just figure it out. It's not something you just figure out on the fly. Have you ever done, say, composting toilets? And maybe, and I hear a lot of people, that's, possibly one of their plans. If things get bad and their normal plumbing doesn't work, they're going to do composting toilets. Well, have you ever done composting toilets? Because I have, and it's not an impossibility to do. It's not this horrible thing, but it is different, and it is a chore. And you should try it sometime. You should go in and tape up your toilet. Yep, take some duct tape and just tape that thing up to where you can't even use it, and set a bucket there with a toilet seat on it. You can buy them at Walmart back in the sporting goods, and use that toilet for the day. The whole family has to use it. Teach them how to use it, talk to them, explain to them, and use it, so that they all get used to using it, and they understand what the smell is like, which really is not bad at all, and that they understand it. What about your waste? We're so used to just walking out to the, into the driveway and dropping it in a container, and that's the last we ever see of it. Why don't you collect all your waste, your trash is what I'm referring to, not human waste, but your trash, for an entire week? Don't put it out there. And don't put it out there at all. Figure out what you're going to do with it. What are you going to do with that? Let it sit around. Let it start stinking. I know, I'm crazy, aren't I? But figure out what you're going to do. And then what this is going to do, it's also going to teach you that you probably have too much trash. Maybe you live in the city, so you're a little bit more restrictive of what you can do with it. But after that week's worth of garbage starts piling up, you probably realize, man, I could have recycled probably a lot of that, or I could have burned it, or we could have just done without some of that garbage. These are things that I would recommend you do on a fairly regular basis. At minimum, I would do them quarterly. I highly recommend doing some of these things on a monthly basis. Put it on the calendar so that everyone's ready for it. And today is non-electric day. We're going to shut everything down. And maybe you need to leave the refrigerator running for obvious reasons, but no one's allowed to use it. If you have to tape the doors shut or whatever, do it. Turn all the lights off. You can go in and start flipping breakers, and so all the lights are off. Now you got to live and go all throughout the night and everything. And you say, well, I've got little kids. They don't like living in the dark. Well, think of how bad it's going to be when, the big old mushroom cloud goes up and you don't have electricity anymore. And you're stressed because now the apocalypse has hit. And you're dealing with your child that's crying and fussing because it's dark out. So maybe you should start dealing with that now and start learning to develop certain tools, skills to kind of, work around that. When the power's out and your kid can't get to sleep because they're upset it's in the dark. And then what are you going to do about that? I know this seems, to some of you, and maybe to a lot of you, this may seem very trivial. It may seem very small. But in my experience, personal, and from what I have read and studied, and through my training, in bad kind of SHTFs, where it's, maybe not the end of the world, but it's still definitely bad. A lot of times, the things that start to wear people down the fastest are not the really big deal. Our minds are beautifully created to actually handle a lot of stress. We have certain things that start kicking in, adrenaline kicks in, certain other chemicals. Our mind kind of rewires itself for a while when we're going through a high stress situation. And so we're able to many times focus very clearly when it comes to big emergencies. So a lot of times, the things that a lot of people would worry about, oh my goodness, if, Yellowstone volcano erupts, we've got to deal with this, we got to do 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 this. And then they forget about the little things, and they're prepared for the big things, and they're mentally prepared for the big things, and their mind can kind of work through that because it's kind of switched gears and it's in emergency mode for a while. We tend to be more prepared for the bad stuff. and getting through it physically and mentally. And a lot of times we forget about the small things, or we think about them and we're like, yeah, I'll use a composting toilet. Yeah. When we don't have power, we'll cook over an open fire. Yeah. Oh, I've got 600 pounds of beans and rice, and we'll just live off of that. There's a lot of things that we think in the back of our mind. We'll just do that, but we've never actually done it. We've never actually practiced that. We've never actually developed really the skills, kind of honed them or anything. And I feel, again, personal experience, things I've read, and from some training, that's going to be probably a very weak link for a lot of you preppers. So don't just go out there and do the big exciting training and stuff. Do the little things too. Do you get up in the middle of the night, maybe in the complete darkness, and you do things in your house? Are you capable of doing things in your house when it's dark? Moving around, how well can you move around in your house when it's dark? Gardening. I know I talk a lot about gardening. I love gardening, but I don't know how many people I have heard over the years that don't grow a garden, never grown a garden a day in their life, but their plan, when Shtf happens, I'm going to have some duck tonight. I keep running them out. Their plan is when the big balloon goes up, that they're going to crack out them seeds that they stocked up 20 years ago, and they're all vacuum sealed at one of them survival seed buckets or whatever, and they're going to go out there and they're just going to miraculously know how to garden. They're going to start sticking seeds in the ground, and stuff's going to come up, and they're going to just be the green thumb gardener and have a huge harvest. And I'm telling you folks, if that's your plan, it's not going to work well for you. Like I said, I think in a video a few days back, if your plan for water is walking down to the river that's 5 miles away from you and trucking up in 5-gallon buckets enough water for you and your wife and your 3 kids and your 2 dogs and a cat and all those chickens and the 5 or 6 goats that you have and the milk cow and her calf and your garden, and you're going to carry all that water every day from a river or a lake that's 5 miles away. That's your plan. Well, if that's your plan, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but your plan needs to be reworked, because it's going to be real difficult on you, because that's a lot of water. That's a lot of water. And I think so many times we get to where we're working on these plans and we hear things online and we see things on videos like, oh, that's good, I'm going to do that. Maybe you write it down even, but do you ever actually do it? That's something that you need to be doing on a regular basis. Yes, going out target shooting is great. Going out and doing different maneuvers and tactics and stuff, takedown tactics, and taking someone down because they just broke into your house. That's great. But have you ever actually drank river water before that you've put through the purification process? Have you cooked any of those beans and rice and tried to make them palatable after 4 or 5 days of just only eating beans and rice? Where are you gonna poop, folks? What are you gonna do with it? This is the kind of stuff you need to be practicing on a fairly regular basis. Like I said, I would say minimum quarterly. And I would highly recommend you do these things on a monthly basis. Just take a day, maybe half a day first of the month, half a day, whatever works for you. But I think this is a big weakness for most preppers, and I think it's one of those kind of things that could easily get you killed. All right, folks, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.